Trimble is a California-based world's leading technology solutions global company servicing global industries in agriculture, building and construction, geospatial, natural resources and utilities, governments, transportation, and others. Trimble also does hardware development of global navigation satellite systems, receivers, laser rangefinders, unmanned aerial vehicles, inertial navigational system, and software processing tools. We are happy to have with us Paul Wallett, who is the Regional Director of Trimble Solutions in India and Middle East. Paul was appointed as Regional Director 7 years ago. He's taken up the India role in 2016, brings with him 22 years of in-depth international and regional experience to his post. He's worked in the software industries in the UK, USA, and the Middle East. And in the role of Regional Director for India and Middle East, he is responsible for business operations and management of overall strategy for India and the UAE office. Welcome, Paul. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you. And thank you for the invitation to discuss some thoughts on the move in the industry, in terms of adoption of technology.
Yeah, and these are unprecedented times. I think most aptly described as COVID times. And I'm happy to have you answer some of these questions which we have during these times.
Certainly, yeah. Interesting times for all, I'm sure.
So, as per a recent report, Paul, the global construction software market is, despite the COVID times, slated to grow by more than 9.76% CAGR to $2.8 billion. So what are your thoughts on this transformation? Because people feel that digital interventions would be very much required post-COVID. What are your thoughts for the construction industry?
So and I'm pulling from some reports online in terms of adoption as well. But this is what we ourselves experience and what we've seen from many different surveying companies like McKinsey, BNC, yourselves, and our own findings. Let's talk about current COVID, and I think the interesting facts and figures that we have that have come about. I was very interested to see and get some data metrics on where we saw the uptake in different technologies while everybody was rushed to home and they're on the lockdown, but businesses still have to perform and still have to operate. So what we saw was a huge uptake in technologies which are our cloud-based solution. We saw a huge uptake in SketchUp, huge uptake in model sharing solutions and our cloud-based platforms like Trimble Connect. We also saw a huge increase in the people using the data warehouses that we have, storing a lot of this information, objects that people can download, pricing information. And I think we could say at least, between 40 to 50% increase in those type of usage of those solutions. When we look at the McKinsey had a nice digital report that came out, also looking at those types of metrics, and what they found was in the last 8 weeks, I think it's 2.5 months, 3 months lockdown, they felt that the industry had leaped forward in terms of 5 years in their adoption of, people that, let's say, before were thinking about adopting technology were almost forced to go ahead because they had no other option. So those procrastinators, let's say, that the management may have been on board with it, but you're dealing with social dynamics in the organizations as well. So people that were resisting were now in a situation that, you know, they had no choice but to. So that has been, I think, a really good thing for the industry in terms of this digital transformation, that people have now been pushed forward. I think they needed it in reality, because we've been telling the BIM story now for the last 10 years, and the actual usage in the market, awareness is very high. So we see everybody's aware of what building information modeling gives and provides, but I think for the most part, it's mainly the large international, medium to large internationals that have really dived in with both feet to look at, you know, doing a proper strategy, implementing and using it and trying to manage it. You know, maybe they're not all at the optimized level, but they're at least at the managing level. For most of the other companies, it's an ad hoc, you know, so they may get, for instance, a tender that comes in and says you need to implement BIM on this, so it's on the project basis, and then others see it as an opportunistic, you know, so again, you know, there's a project on the horizon, so let's purchase and invest in, you know, some BIM, building information modeling tools or software and so on. So how soon do we see the industry to adapt and adopt to it? I think it's a ongoing phase, but I think we're going to see that start to escalate and accelerate in the industry now as a consequence of, you know, what we've all had to face.
So yeah, it has accelerated, and I think this could be the best time as any in terms of jump starting the entire business. But tell me, Paul, your Trimble has been growing, you know, inorganically generally with you know, acquisitions like SketchUp, Tekla, VicoOffice, eBuilder, Safera, and Viewpoint more recently. So what is the total range that you're trying to cover as a company? Is there a goalpost in mind, or these were filling in gaps as the customers kept coming back with newer sort of needs?
So, you know, as you said earlier, you know, Trimble is well known for hardware. You know, it founded on GPS and telemetry software, GNSS positioning software, and for many years that was, you know, the mainstream solutions that we were selling. But we recognize in terms of changing the process, it's about people and process at the end of the day. So, you know, people are driving the machines, but what's the process really to manage that data in the best way possible? And so that has really migrated the organization to really look at key performing technologies in the construction industry and other aspects of the business. That software is really the driver for the hardware solution. You know, so it's not about just going to site and doing a survey and then taking the data points back. It's how do we get that information into that machine with, you know, the minimum loss of data or no data loss in itself. So you need to author the digital information in the beginning. So that's why we have things like SketchUp. We have you know, parametric modeling solutions that, you know, sit on other solutions that are commonplace in the market, as well as our proprietary software. So in the construction industry, you know, Tekla Structures is our tool for construction. You know, it's not an architect's platform, it is a construction solution. So building that digital, highly accurate digital model at the outset, and then developing processes where we can transfer that information digitally to the physical device. That means that you're going to transport that data right out into the site, the job site. So this, and the other solutions that you talk about are looking at the key management. So ERP is kind of a leading, or management of projects is, you know, that's where all your cost is tied up in terms of managing your overall project costs, and scheduling on site, managing your portfolio. So these are also very key to the whole construction process in terms of, you know, how we were managing all of our projects, cost control, and then the project management side. So, you know, eBuilder, Viewpoint, a lot of these different tools are there to, you could say, almost fill in those gaps, but they're a bridge between the point solutions and the process.
Right. So it's not, no, it is a part of a strategy to actually get the software capability in order to fulfill the kind of sectors that you all are addressing, as I understand. And I wanted you to now throw some light on the new tech trends that are like mixed reality, constructability. These are driving efficient construction, reducing wastage, and so again, these are again needs of today as the industry evolves and feels that they ought to better their margins. Obviously, wastage is going to be prime concern, and now, of course, safety is going to be another huge concern. So, how do you see these new tech trends, and how's Trimble adapting to them?
Yeah, so I think one of the key drivers for us is, again, it's that bridging of the digital to the physical world. What we see as a very commonplace, typical process on construction sites is in terms of building information modeling, it's very much held within the engineering and design group. And so they spend, a lot of time and effort, which is great, and it's moving the industry forward in terms of coordinating a model, making sure things do not clash, because we know the preventative measures are the best way forward in terms of alleviating errors on site. But then when we get down into the site, we always see people running around with 2D drawings, or they may have an iPad, but it's still interpreting data in a two-dimensional space platform. So, building a 3D model, we should be able to have a continuum of that information out into the job site itself. So these mixed reality devices that we've created really enable that bridge between the digital world and the physical world. So, we have a few devices that work around that aspect. So, one is Sight Vision, which is augmented reality, that allows you with a mobile phone and our app and a connection to one of our GNSS positioning devices to position you exactly where you are out on site, and then project through your device the designed model, construction, whatever that is, out into the real world. So this gives an immediate relationship between the design model and the physical site and constraints that you're working with, and gets you going much faster in terms of downloading that information, what the project is, what the parameters are, how can I get going on the project. And then we've got XR10, which is our collaboration with Microsoft HoloLens 2. And what XR10 is actually, it's basically we've deconstructed the HoloLens as a special agreement with Microsoft, and we've recompiled that into a usable form, which is safety compliant, and it conforms to all the safety standards for impact and electrical risk areas. It's got the safety glasses. It even has bone conduction audio devices, because out on the job site, it's a loud environment. So we've put that into a usable form. And also with our Trimble Connect, which is our cloud-based solution that allows you to connect anywhere at any particular time. enables people to go to site and they can use it in various scenarios. It could be pre-construction, it could be during construction, or it could be maintenance post-construction, where we can look at technicians going to site, and then with our remote assist using the Dynamics software, we can actually work from the office base itself out remotely to somebody on site, and then you can have instructions sent, or they can collect information or whatever. So this emergence, I think we're going to start to see more and more of in the future. Obviously, it's at the early stages, but
have you seen any translation of this in terms of taking projects forward currently so far?
In terms of current projects, I think they're benefiting at this point in time, doing building information modeling and starting to implement better processes throughout. What we do see is we can all have the best intentions. We do the best we can to avoid problems that could occur on site. It's human error, right? So we are the breaks in that digital chain at the end of the day. So what these mixed reality devices enable us to do is we can actually go to a pre-construction stage before some critical component is being delivered, and we can do a site survey and overlay in the real situation the hologram, so we can do a sanity check. And we have had instances where something's been missed along the way, but by going and doing that pre-check, it's meant that materials have not had to be yet shipped to site, and the mistakes encountered as the guys are putting whatever that system is in actual situ. So these are also additional preventative measures that will save cost in throughout that project itself.
Well, tell us about the partnership between Trimble, Hilti, and Boston Dynamics, and how it will help the construction industry.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I've been following Boston Dynamics a long time because you see these really fun videos coming up. They're doing a great marketing job with their robot that they get aggressive with. But leading to that, then out of that came Spot the robot, and what we saw was a great opportunity to couple our robotic technology that we have. And when we think of the X7, which is a combined total station and laser scanning device all in one, and it does self-registration on site. So when you do a point cloud, it actually does that point cloud and self-registered all the different point clouds together. It's self-leveling as well. So really, in terms of coupling that with the trend that we saw coming in the industry, let's say, is a lot of people were doing as-built validation laser scans. So they would, do a certain portion of work, a certain phase, then they would go out and in the contract it says you have to do a laser scan to make sure what is as designed is as built. So they would then overlay that point cloud, back into the as designed model. And this would be a repeatable process that they would do over and over. And if you can imagine a project, a large project that could last, 2 or 3 years, if you're continually having to do laser scans or monitoring on site, that takes up a lot of time. It also increases the risk of that person that has that particular job to do. So this relationship with Boston Dynamics enabled us to take our laser scanning X7, which is a robot in itself, it's an unmanned laser scanning solution, couple it with the Spot the robot, Spot the dog, and then automate that process of doing those laser scans. So the robot would run around on site and do laser scans, and then it would remote stream the point cloud back into the field tablets that we have. So then the people that normally would be spending several hours to do this laser scanning could be freed up, and they could go on and do other important tasks. So it also lowers the risk level on site. So if you've got a very busy site, replacing a robot is far easier than taking care of a health risk that could come to an individual.
All in India, well, coming to India, we have seen that specialty contracting and consultancy services have now mushroomed and are being taken seriously. So we have HVAC consultants, we have MEP consultants, and the new breed which is evolving as the construction industry evolves. And in the light of this, the penetration of BIM obviously needs to, because you need to integrate all the services together. How do you see this? How has this been so far, and how do you see this going forward, the BIM penetration?
So what we've seen is, so a lot of local BIM service providers in India, what they typically are doing is they're working on behalf of big clients that are working on international projects quite often. So for them, it's like a service industry. So when we then really look at what's happening domestically in India, that's the area I think needs to be improved upon in terms of more local projects using the BIM technology. Obviously, when you're working on an international project, the rates that they're getting paid is going to be much higher than the local one. But I think what they need to see is there is still a huge value in terms of cost saving on that project that you're doing domestically. There are, quite a number of projects now that have adopted BIM, and in India. So we look at like the Delhi Metro, we look at Bangalore Airport, we look at the Statue of Unity, which is one that actually used BIM throughout because it was very complex, and those kind of key projects, and we're seeing more and more of that, picking up in India, but not on the level that, India's I think 35 million people work in the construction industry in India alone, right? Because you're over 1 billion people. So is it anywhere at the level that we would hope for? I think there's a long way to go yet. And then the other aspect to that is the level that BIM is being utilized. So we're very used to utilizing BIM in the engineering and design phase. But when you then penetrate that out through the whole work process and execute a job that was initiated in BIM, delivered and constructed in BIM, that's a big proportion. Number one, where the major cost is on that project is when you commit people to site, commit materials to site. So really advancing the usage of building information modeling and these different solutions throughout the construction phase is where the biggest impact is going to come in terms of saving money and revaluing the construction industry.
Well, one last question. How do you see post-COVID the whole construction site, its operation, its entire outlook? What kind of an impact this COVID pandemic is going to do to us?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have, and we've been doing our own assessment. I think number one, when we look at post-COVID, we're looking at risk factors. So you have to then start to look, in terms of social distancing on site, in terms of preemptive medical health checks of your laborers before they even get onto the on-site situation. And then, how can we utilize data to help improve that? Generally, what's going to happen is when you implement new processes, you're going to obviously have an impact on the schedule of the project in itself, right? So there's a lot of knock-on effects that are going to come down the line. So I think that what we're seeing is people are starting to really think about how can we manage our job sites a lot better, and how we can put processes in place to enable our labor force to get on site. You know, you've got to manage social distancing as well, so you can't have large gatherings of groups, and you also are going to have, if the masks are still going to have to be in place, and we don't know how many months that's going to be, but I would say, you know, it's going to continue on for quite some time, is you need to deploy technologies that are going to actually do the work for you in terms of AI, let's say, machine learning, AI camera visuals. And it was only just yesterday that I heard in Dubai here, where I'm situated, the local taxis have implemented AI and in the cameras in the taxis. So what they're doing, and they're saying is 100% accurate, is they actually use AI to make sure the mask is correctly put on. And then if not, you know, they will get notified and fines will be issued, as well as that social distancing. So that's just in a rapid transport system, you know, thousands of taxis running around. On the job site, the same can be applied. So we can use those cameras, facial recognition cameras, number one. Is it the right person that's coming on the job site? You know, has he got the right, so you've got a database of the certifications of that person as well. Has he had his health check? And then, you know, if he passes those initial safety checks, he can be permitted out on site. Beyond that, then, when we look at those safety scenarios, so using that recognition technology and artificial intelligence to look at safety issues that may occur, or, you know, gathering, and then we can use technologies that we have, which is managing where people are at any particular point in time on site. So I think what we'll start to see is a lot more interest in those type of solutions coming up. And then obviously you need to plan better, you need to schedule better, you need to build into your schedules that there is going to be downtime on site. So the other part that you can alleviate this is pre-construction as well. You know, so do we now have to have, because if we're managing a lot of people on site to build a building, we're a lot better off if we can get ahead of that game by pre-constructing and then taking to site and having less people to put those structures together. So it's not just about on the site, it's, you know, what's coming in terms of the process of how you're designing buildings and putting them together. 3D printing is, you know, also a type of technology that people are starting to really become interested in. And then we've got the type of materials, whether it's precast, whether it's these structural buildings, you know, because that's all prefabricatable prior to getting to site, and then rapid erection of those buildings.
Right. So I think assembling everything together, having done a detailed planning and analysis beforehand in the office or back at the back room, and then bringing it together and putting everything together can accelerate the processes. But like you said, now we've got more variables of social distancing, of health and hygiene to be incorporated in terms of the planning. So variables have increased, and yet people will want to finish projects in time. So probably Trimble has to help the sites much better in terms of planning.
Yeah, you know, there's many different parts to that piece. So you mentioned constructible earlier. Constructible is what we see as key to transforming the industry in the way that, you know, we're actually efficiently building a building on the job site. So having more information built in the model at the beginning to a higher level of development and detail means that whatever you've done digitally, you should be able to construct out on site as a digital twin of that, right? So that's one aspect. Then you can, once you start to remove those errors, you can compress your schedule, because you know, well, now we know what's going to happen. We can plan better because we know out on site things will fit as and coordinate as they should be. And so it's a tie-in at the very outset. So I think when, you know, that part that I spoke about that we don't see enough in terms of technology taken through the construction phase, it needs to come out of that design engineering office, and you need to be carrying a 3D model with you out onto the job site as well. Not a drawing. The 3D model needs to be there, and then integrating that with your positioning and hardware devices, and HoloLens and mixed reality devices, and then you can start to really have a bigger impact on the schedule. That's going to be meaningful.
Or elimination of all last-minute surprises would be the goal.
Yeah, and what we see in terms of the surveys that you've done and other surveys is the big investments that people have is into project management, ERP system, project management, the analytics. So we've been building these nice 3D models, but building information modeling is about the data that sits behind of it. And so now you've created all this data. How are you going to use it? How are you going to break that down? So using analytics and also using history of what has happened before helps you open the door to machine learning. And then you can start to utilize, AI as well and help that. But it's an algorithm, and it can only be as good as the data that you have built that platform on as well. So then you can utilize the other technologies that they're available, but it's just about investment. And I think now the market is keen to be in a position where, if they want to continue in their projects in the future, they need to start really thinking about that investment now.
Right, Paul. Thank you, Paul, for giving us time and explaining how you're transforming the construction sites. Good luck and stay safe. Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity and thank you, and good luck and stay safe over there.